let's continue building our note-taking applications using the state and prop. So we have modified it to the place where we shared the data and also assigned the state. Right now, we'll make it a full-fledged application by passing all the events and interacting between the components and everything, right? So as a first step, let's take the input from the form and let's try to add it so that this static data won't be repeated, right? So I'll be having the empty data, right? So I'm deleting all of these. So in my state, I have now an empty array, and from the input form component, I have to pass the data. So from child to parent, I have to pass the data so that whatever is being added in the child should be added to the this.state.data. So whenever you face such things, what do? First, you will create a function over here, right? So that function is handle submit, right? So handle submit, what it would do, or you can put it as add to do, add note, add new note, right? So this function will get an object note. So what should this object contain? This object should contain the title, this option could contain the ID, and this option should contain the status of it, right? 3 fields. So let's do that. How do you add the data which is coming from the form? This dot set state of data is equal to, right? Data is equal to this dot state dot data. I'm triple dotting all the elements. It means I'm spreading all the elements and I'm freshly adding a new node to the data. So now I have to somehow call this function when the handle click button is clicked over here, right? So for that, let me first assign the state. So in this component, right, super, and I'll be calling the props over here and the same way props. So now I'll be assigning the state. This dot state is equal to, I'll bind this input field to the state element, that is note. Okay, note, and this will be empty in the beginning. So how do I bind an input field? Value is equal to this dot state dot node. Okay, this dot state dot node, and I need to attach on change event handler. So this on change event handler will be emitted whenever you type something on the input field, and I'll get object e.target.value. So now I'll use that to set my state, that is node is equal to e.target.value. Okay, now I will pass this function. So when you want to interact between child to parent, what do? You define a function in the parent, you pass it as prop, you pass the function reference as prop, add new node, you will pass function reference as prop to the child component, and when the button is clicked on submit, what do? You call that function. It means you're defining the function somewhere, but you're accessing or executing the function call from here. So what do I do now? This dot props dot add new node. Now when I'm adding, I'll add title. So what are we mentioning it as when we are looping? We are mentioning it as name. So name of the node, that is name is equal to node, and status is equal to not initiated, not initiated, and this will be this dot state dot node, and id will be some random id which I'll be generating from import nano id. So from nano id, so this nano id is used for generating random ids, so I'll be using this nano id to generate the unique id for this to do. So whenever when the on submit button is clicked, I'll add the new note over here, right? So let's see if this is working, right? So my first note, okay, my first note, I clicked on add, but what happened? Something, it's gone. So what is happening? So by default it is submitting. By default, when you click on the submit button, it is submitting the form. So what do you do that in that scenario? You call the function prevent default, right? Prevent default. Now I'll see my first note, right? Even then it is still going to the note here, so we'll see what is wrong. It is okay, people do mistakes. Yes, we didn't add the submit handler, we didn't what do I say, we added the submit event handler on the button. Instead, where we need to add, we need to add it on the form. So prevent default, right? Now when I click my first node in this application, awesome, so my first node in this application has been added. Now I need to check few things. So first thing, after adding, the state should be cleared, and second thing, if I add empty data, then also it is coming. So I need to add these two validations over here, so I'll be adding those now. If this dot state dot note is equal to empty, then don't call in. So we'll put the else condition, okay, or we can say, we can give an alert, please enter some text in the field, right? And then we'll return the function from here. So now when I try to add an empty text, so it is showing please enter some text in the input field, which is perfectly fine. And after calling this function, I have to set the state, I have to restate the state, that is this dot set state is equal to node should be back to the default state. So that's it. Now let me refresh and let me add my another text, my first note in this application. Yes, so not initiated value has been increased to 1, and in progress and complete. So my first note is in this application, and I cannot add say empty input field, and also I can add the my second node in this application. So yeah, it is perfect. Not initiated is 2, so automatically the state is getting updated, right? Now let's see, let's change the way how you can change the status from completed, in progress, and not initiated, right? So how do I do that? So that is in the note list component over here, note list, yeah, this element, right? So label is this dot props dot name, which is fine, but instead of having the input field checkbox, I want to have select, so that I can select incompleted or in progress or anything, right? So now I'll create those option completed, and the value will be completed. Similarly, option in progress and value will be in progress, and the last one is value will be not initiated. Similarly, not initiated, right? And I have to bind this select field to the state again. So when I will change the values, it will reflect, and I need to update my parent component about the same thing. So if I go here now, my first node in this application. So now I got the statuses completed, in progress, and not initiated. So yeah, I should now be able to change the status of my application, right? So let me do that. So what will happen when somebody is changing the status of an active in not initiated to in progress? I have to listen to it, right? So how can I do that? From here, let me close all of these components which I'm not using. Yeah, so over here, so where is this coming from? This dot status dot list. So completed, in progress, so the value should be in this fashion: completed, in progress, and not initiated. So let's modify the values into camel case: completed, in progress, right? So first we'll bind this component to the state constructor, and I'll get the props over here, and I'll call the super props, and then this dot state is equal to this dot status is equal to, technically I don't need, so I have multiple list elements over here, right? Multiple list elements, so it will be status is equal to something of this sort. But what technically I have to do is, when the on change happens, I have to update my state over here. So from here, the status should be changed to completed and everything. So for that case, what I'll do is, node list component is anyhow going from here. So I have to define a function. Update status of the node. Okay, and here I'll be receiving the node ID which we have passed, right? So using that node ID, I should first find out the element and its index, right? So this dot state dot data dot for each, right? Dot for each element comma index, right? Element comma index. Now if element dot id is equal to id, then what I have to do? Then I have to update this dot state dot data of index is equal to the status. So I will be getting the status as well. So when somebody is calling the update status of the node, when somebody is changing the drop down, he will send me the ID and the status. Then what I'll do, this dot state dot data of index comma status. So whatever status they are trying to send me. Do not mutate state directly. So obviously I cannot mutate the state directly. So what I'll do is, I'll clone the array. Constant current state is equal to this dot state dot data, right? And instead of mutating this, what I'll do is I'll rotate the current state. Okay, current state will be modified to this current state, and after this I'll update my set state. I'll call the set state to update the latest, that is data is equal to dot 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 current state. That's it. So first I cloned it in a different variable, and I updated that current state, and once the current state object is updated, I am setting the final state to the data property so that my array or my state property has not been mutated anywhere, and I am having the latest data, right? So for this node list component, what I have to do is I am passing the props. I am passing the props from here. So basically what I need to do is, instead of doing all of this multiple times, what I can do is simply I can pass this dot props. So I can pass the entire props over here, but for using this keyword I have to define the constructor, that is props and super props, right? And what is wrong over here? Yeah, okay, I'll pass the entire to do object is equal to this dot props dot, oh no, I'm having the to do object here, sorry. So I can simply do dot 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 to do. I don't know why it is not coming. Yeah, you simply do dot 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 to do. So now whatever elements like status, name, everything are present, they'll be just sent to this component, child component, as props. Now you can access them directly. So this dot props dot name, and also value will be equal to this dot props dot status, right? And also when somebody is changing, on change I have to assign an event handler, that is right. So what I have to do, along with passing the to-do list component, I also need to pass this function which is going to update the status, right? So update status of the node, but this function will be triggered at a place where you are changing the status, right? That is in the select component. So on change will contain this update status of the node will be passed to node list component, and node list component should pass that prop down. So update status of the node is equal to this dot props dot update status of the node. So I'm just passing it down, and here I'm gonna call it. So it is going 2 levels down. This dot update, it is going 2 levels down, one component and second component. And here I have to send this dot props dot id, the id of the node element, and also the e dot target dot value. So when the on change event handler is called, so in that case I'm updating my state of the element as well, right? So if you now go here and say my first node and I add it, so the value should be not initiated this dot props dot status. So basically what I'm checking is not initiated is one, but the status is getting as completed over here. Let's see what is wrong, right? So let's console.log this dot props, okay, and let's see in the UI console and my first node. So technically it is not my first node. Yeah. So node and status is coming as not initiated. Technically it should be coming as small not initiated, right? So that's the reason. So not initiated. Now everything should be clean. Node and add, right? So now not initiated is one, and also you are selecting the not initiated only, and also somehow we are not passing the key, so it is showing an error. Basically that's over here. So you are rendering the list element, right? So key is equal to to-do dot id. So I can directly do this. Now I shouldn't be seeing any warnings for the list elements. Note, yes, perfect, warnings are gone, and I also got the ID and not initiated, right? Now when I try to change the status of it, yes, now when I'm changing the status to in progress, it is changing the in progress value, and when I'm changing the status of completed, it is changing the status of number of count of the completed. Similarly, I'll add another node, second node. Yes, now second node is in not initiated and the completed, and when I'm changing the values, it is getting changed 2 and 0, in progress 1. So that's the first stage, guys. So we right now what we have done is we have taken the input from the form element and we added a new row over here. We added a new row over here, and which is updating the count of all the statuses as well, completed, in progress and not initiated. At the same time, we added a select field which is actually changing the status of a to-do component. By that we are changing the count as well. So we are binding the state, every state to the parent, and we are making the calls from respective childs so that everything looks clean, right? So now the second thing, right? So now let's implement the edit functionality of the node. So basically when you click on the edit button, you should have an input field coming up with again the same node. So if I'm editing over here, so this node should be edited and I should be able to submit the updated node. So let's try to implement it, right? So for that, what I'll be doing is I'll be storing another property in the React data.state. So along with right now we are storing three properties, right? Like node name and ID and status. Now another mode I'll have, that is edit mode, which will be true or false. Okay, so I'll have this as well. So for that, I'll be writing another function. So whenever I click on edit button, I'll change the edit mode to true. And when I click on the submit button, again, I'll change the edit mode to false. Update edit mode of the node, right? So basically that's what I'm trying to do over here, right? So ID, I have to get the ID. So same thing. It's just that instead of updating the status, now I'll update the edit mode to true. So, or else I can say, I can pass what value to be edited, edit mode. So here, whatever value I pass as an argument, that will be updated. Okay, so update edit mode of the node. Now here I'll create, so basically I'll create a new sub component, right? So this will basically check this dot props dot edit mode. If this is true, if this dot props dot conditional rendering, if this dot props dot edit mode is true, then what I'll do is I'll try to render a component which is input, and it will also have button, right? And if it is nothing, then I don't render anything. So basically here I'm trying, if this dot props dot edit mode is true, this dot props dot edit mode is true, then I'll render a component which is input. So in input there will be one input field and one button field. So when I click on edit button, so I'll have a small form opening up for myself. So if I just remove this and add the stylings as type is equal to button, and I can pick the styles from here. Class name is button, right? Where is it? Yeah, class name is button, and I don't know if I can add success. So when I want to edit my form, now I don't have anything. Submit, right? So no. So now I should show this component only when the edit button is clicked, right? So that's what I'm trying to do here. So whenever the edit mode is true, so I'll pull out this component, edit mode component, right? Edit mode component is equal to will return the edit mode component, and this edit mode component will have value same as this dot state dot this dot props dot name. Initially it will have the same, and then on change I should have so first I'm using the constructor, so I should define the props and then super props. Okay, so okay, for now I'll put it over here only. I have to basically wrap it inside a component, inside a single, so I have to return a single thing, right? And then on change, what I have to do is this dot state is equal to, so I have to first bind this value note, right? Note which will have initial value as this dot props dot name, and here I'll be using this dot state dot node. So whatever the initial value, I'm getting directly it from the this dot props dot name, and on change will have e dot target dot value. So this dot set state of this dot set state of node, and which will be e dot target dot value, right? So whenever the on change event handlers appears, it is updating its local state, and when the button is clicked, I have to update the status, or I have to update the node, right? So basically when the button is clicked, I have to update the node, update name of the node. So I'm creating another function which will update the name, that is like this, and later we'll combine all of these functions. don't worry. So this currently looks very bad. You are writing the same code again and again, which is very, very bad. So now just pass this component, just pass this function, update name of the node, that is this dot update name of the node, right? So when the button is clicked, on click, you will have, first you need to get this prop from your parent, that is from the list component, node list component. So here you will get update name of the node is equal to this dot props dot update name of the node. Okay, update name of the node. Now you will utilize that function. You will basically call that function when the on button is clicked, right? So when the button is clicked, you will set this dot props dot update name of the node. At the same time, you will be passing the this dot props dot id. So yeah, remember that this is being called in the loop iteration, right? This is being called in the iteration. So you will have this dot props dot id, and now you will be updating it to this dot state dot node, whatever is present in the local state, right? So now I have to render that component only when this dot props dot edit mode is true, and when that is true, I should render edit component, edit mode component, right? And otherwise I have to render an empty element, right? So if you see now, and also when I click on the edit button, I have to update the state. So update status of the node, update edit mode of the node. So I have to pass this function as well. Right, I have to pass this function as well. This dot update status of the node, update edit mode of the node. Now I just have to drill it down from here. So let me restructure this piece of code so that it is visible. Update edit mode of the node, that is dot props dot update edit mode of the node, right? Now when the edit button is clicked, again remember this node list element action is also inside the loop, right? So when the button is clicked on click, so what I have to do, I have to call this dot props dot update edit mode of the node, and inside, since I am in the loop, I'll be having access to this dot props dot id, and edit mode should be true, right? So this dot update, and I have to pass the prop from the node list element to the node list action. So instead I am just doing the prop drilling, that is I'll just this pass all the props, this dot pass props, right? So now when the edit button is clicked, I am calling the function this dot props dot update edit mode, which is in the very first component, right? So let me add a component. Note, okay, I don't see the input field over here. Now I click on the edit button, I can see the form and also the submit button, right? Now I'll be changing this value to new node. Okay, Now I click on the submit button. This has been changed, but the form is not closed, right? So for that, what I have to do, update name of the node and also set the edit mode to false. So when you are updating the name, what is the last you'll be doing? You'll be uh, setting the edit mode to false again. So edit very new node, and I click on the submit and done. So my data has been updated and also the edit form has been moved, and my rest all functionalities are very clean. So this way we have implemented the edit mode, right? Now let's restructure this code a bit and let's reduce the amount of code over here, right? So if you see, these three functions are pretty much same, right? These three functions are pretty much same. So instead what I can do is, I can simply wrap all of this to update to do and ID, and here I'll send the note object or the update payload. Okay, so now what I will be doing is this dot current state and this update payload, I'll just triple dot. So whatever you pass as an argument, maybe you want to update the status, maybe you want to update the name, maybe you want to update the edit mode, all that will be taken care over here, right? So I'll delete rest all functions. I'll now handling all of those functions in a single update to do, and I'll be passing only that over here. So let me delete this and update to do. This will be update to do, and also I have to change it at the top. That is, instead of passing all of these, what I can simply do is I'll just pass down all the props which are coming to this component, that is this dot props. So now whatever props are coming to node list component, that will be automatically passed to the node list element component, right? Now wherever I was calling this dot props dot add new node, this is fine, and I was updating the status somewhere, so I have to change that, update edit mode instead of this. Now I'll say this dot props dot update to do, and here I'll be sending status, what is this, node list element actions, right? So edit mode to true. So here I am changing the edit mode, that is edit mode will be now true, right? And I can just toggle this also, so this way. So this dot props dot edit mode, so if it is true it will be false, if it is false it will be true. And also I have to change this update name of the node. Instead of this I have to do update to do, and I have to pass the object as this name is equal to this dot state dot node, right? So here now I'm using the same function update to do, and I'm passing an object which has to be updated and edit mode, and also along with the name I have also need to set edit mode to false, right? So when the update has been done, I have to change it to edit mode to false so that it will be not visible. Similarly here update to do, when the select value changes, I have to change the status, right? So here I'll be setting it as status e.target.value. That's it. Now I think everything should work perfect, and let me see if something goes wrong. It can go wrong. We are allowed to do mistakes. So what is it? Cannot read properties of undefined, cannot read properties of undefined. Get status of checks. Okay, I'm not passing some value. I think, yeah. To do is equal to, I have to pass this, right? I deleted this dot state dot data, right? Now the component is visible, right? So my first node, and I'm changing the status. It is getting changed, and I edited. So my first node, I got my UI opened up for the editing. Then I'll change it to this is brand new node, and I'll click on the submit button. The node has been changed and the element has been removed. So whatever we have done with 3 functions, right now we have implemented with just 1 function, right? And now let's implement the delete functionality in the same way. So when a button is clicked, I have to delete it now. So either I can do a soft delete or I can do a hard delete, which is deleting actually from the array. So let me write a function to delete the to do is equal to, I'll be giving an ID as parameter. Now I have to find this ID. So constant current state is equal to this dot state dot data, and current state dot filter. I have to filter it out where element dot ID is not equal to the ID passed, and this will be my new state, right? So I have to call the set state functionality. This dot set state of data is equal to, I don't need a temporary variable. Actually, I can directly do it over here. That's it. So when delete to do, we need to pass delete to do right now. So whenever delete icon is clicked, I'll be calling this function delete to do. So I'll be passing delete to do is equal to this dot delete to do, right? So now anyhow I passed all of the props over here, so I can directly access it in them in here. Here also I passed all of the props, so directly on the delete icon I can simply say on click is equal to, right, this dot props dot delete to do. Here I have to pass the ID. Again we are in the loop, so I can directly pass the props dot ID and it will be deleted. So if you just see now 1, I'll just add as 1, and then 2, and then 3. Okay, now I am be deleting the first one. Yes, now the first one is gone, second one and the third one. So that's it. So edit functionality is done, delete functionality is done, and also we are updating the count of the state count based on the statuses. Now the last thing to be implemented is the filters, right? So show the data only, show only that data which is based on the filter. So first I need to change this filters a bit. Where are the filters? Filter component. So instead of having in this fashion, what I'll do is I'll loop through an array. So based on my statuses, right? So it will be all completed and in progress and not initiated, right? So I'll map and I'll get the status, and now here I'll return the button. So what will it be? It will be something of this sort, but the span will be the status. Right, now I can remove this technically, and yeah, so now I got all completed in progress and not initiated, whatever statuses which we are currently supporting. Right now, whenever the data, whenever the filters are selected, I have to pass only that particular data over here, right? So for that, I'll add a filter, I'll add a new function, that is change or filter the to do. Okay, so filter based on the to do, right? Filter based on the to do. So I'll be having data and filtered data, two arguments, both are, oh sorry, filtered data is also an empty array at the beginning. So whenever I get the status, right? Whenever I get the status, and what I'll do is I'll try to store the status, I mean default filter in my state. So by default it will be all. So by default it will be all. So when the status is, if status is equal to all, right? If the status is equal to all, then my this dot set state of filtered data, this one second. Instead of doing this, we have a better way of doing. Yes, so we don't have to store the subset of data every time, right? So what I technically we have to do is, based on the state of the filter component, I have to pass that data to the note list component, right? So in that scenario, what I can do is filter. So filter value is all. So now I have to write a function which will update the filter value and which is called from the filter component. So update filter is equal to, right? So filter and this dot set state of filter value is equal to filter, right? So in the filter component, what I'll do is, whenever the on click of this button is called, on click of this button is called, what I can do is directly I'll call this dot props dot update filter and the status as what we are doing, right? So here I have to pass that function in the props, and filter update filter is equal to update filter, right? Update filter, and based on the filtered value I have to send the data. So here this dot data dot filter, right? Now yeah, so if this dot state dot filter is equal to all, then you can directly send this dot state dot data. Otherwise, what you have to do is you have to filter this dot state dot data dot filter node, or node, where node dot status is equal to this dot state dot filter. So I have to send only that data which is the filtered value, that is complete or incomplete, or in progress or not initiated. So now let me see if the data works out. Node number 1, right? So I don't see any data. It means there is something wrong. Oh, it is not filter. So I'll change this to filter actually. Filter, and here also filter. Yeah. Now node I added. So node, now it is in the all status, right? Now when I move it to completed, and when I click on the button completed, I am seeing it. And when I click on the button in progress, I am not seeing it. So that's the filter. Now let me add another node, second node, right? I am adding it. Second node, I am just seeing the completed one because the current selected filter is complete. And now I am seeing all the filters, right? So that way you are filtering the data in your application based on all the things, all the filtered data. So I'll quickly walk you through the entire code what we have done so far, because we have dealt with a lot of form, lot of state and everything, right? So I'll quickly walk you through the entire code once. So we had, so we have one main component, that is node taking component. Here we are storing this dot state, that is the entire to-do list, all the list elements, node, data, filter and all. And here this function, this component is acting as parent for all other components, right? Like input form, filter component, node list component. So input form is the component which adds the new data to the application. So input form component has again its own state, where that state is binded to the input element, and when the data entered in the input element and clicked on the submit button, you are updating the data of the parent by using the child to parent communication, that is defining a function over in the parent, defining a function over in the parent and passing the reference to the child. So when the child button is clicked, submit button is clicked, you are updating the data in the parent. Similarly, you have node list component which has a lot of actions actually. Like this node list component is again segregated into a lot other components. Like first one is the filters, and then you have the UL list where you actually render the list elements, and this node list element component is again segregated into uh, the one which displays the node and also the one which displays the element actions, that is edit and delete. So we implemented the edit functionality that in such a way that when the edit button is clicked, you are changing the entire node, status and putting it in edit mode. So you are putting it in edit mode so that the edit mode, when the edit mode is true, you are opening up a new form here, that is edit mode component, which has input field and a button. And when the button is clicked on, you are changing the value of the node, not just in the local state of the node list element component, but also by passing a function called as update to do. You are updating that function, you are updating that, using that function you are updating the note in the parent data. So node list component, from here you drilled down the props from one component to other to other, and finally at any place you are triggering this dot props dot update to do. So it travels bottom to up and it is updating the parent. Similarly, the delete to do. So delete to do also is a function passed from the parent to the down to the component, right? That is node list component, and from node list component it has been passed to node list element component, and from there you passed the all this dot props. So by doing spreading the this dot props, you are passing all the props to node list element actions, and when delete button is clicked, since all of these components are in the loop, you have access to the each to-do element that is over here, this dot props dot to-do, and each to-do element has four properties, that is name, ID, and edit mode and the status. So you are using all of these and you are identifying each to do with the help of this ID, which is an ID generated by the library nano ID. Nano ID is a library which generates a unique ID for every time in the iteration, and using that unique ID you are deleting the node, you are updating the node, you are adding the new node. So that's how you are doing the update and delete to do actions. And in the situation we encountered a place where you are submitting a form, that is submitting a new to do. In this situation we had to do e.prevent default, and also to avoid the default reload of the component, that is when you click on the submit button, it makes a get request to itself by passing the data in the input field, and also you added couple of validations and also clearing up the state. So when user submits uh, they a note with empty text in it, you are just doing checking it. So and if it is an empty text, you are displaying an error message saying please enter some text in the field and returning it. And similarly, when the state is updated from the child to parent, that is calling the parent function, you are clearing the state so that it looks clean for you. So this is the data interactions between parent to child at a very high level, and when it might look complicated for you, but always remember, when you want to update a state inside the parent, you define a function in the parent, you pass the function reference to the child, and based on any part, like in any part of the child, maybe that chain can be any long, you drill down the props to each uh, parent, each child, like this node list component. From here we are drilling down all the props to node list element component, and from here all the props are again drilled down, to the node list element actions. From here the actual function calls are being made. So when you click this dot props dot update, to do is called, it is traveling all this way up again and calling the function over here, update or delete to do. At last, we have seen child to child communication, that is filter component to node list component. For this to function, what we have done is, so basically filter component does change the filters. So based on what filter it is, you want to filter out completed or to do in progress or not initiated elements. So based on that, what you have done is you have so whenever you want to communicate from child to child, what you do, first you communicate from child to parent, and from parent to child you update the props, right? So filter component is changing the state of the parent, so child to parent. So when some action is happening in the filter component, that is when somebody selects a filter, so you're calling a function in the parent, that is child to parent communication, and you're updating the filter. And when the filter is updated, you are updating the props passed to the second child, that is node list component. So first child 1 to parent uh, communication is happening by changing the state using this update filter, and when the state has been changed, you are updating the props which are being sent to the underlying child component, node list component, and that's how we modified the state, and we are able to see all of this uh, components or all of this nodes in action. So there are a lot of improvements which you can do on this, like you can store the data in the local storage, because right now when I'm adding a new node and refreshing the page, it is gone, right? So you can use local storage of the browser so that it is persisted in the local storage. And also you right now the styling of this are not being changed. When I'm clicking on it, it should ideally display the user that this is a selected button and this is not, so that is also not present here. So you can add more validations, and I'll be sharing the code with you so you can edit or you can start from the scratch. Yes.